The EU wants to de-risk, not decouple from China. What's the difference? What does that exactly mean?
So for the Chinese, there is no difference. For them, the risking and decoupling means the same thing, meaning that you want to cut the ties with China and especially make life difficult for companies in order to operate there. The point is that if we use the term the risk, it means that there is a risk dealing with China. And this is something that the Chinese counterpart doesn't like very much. And they would like to say that there is no risk in dealing with China. And the fact that we have an increase of trade between the EU and China is showing this. Of course, there is a 400 billion euros deficit with China, but on the other side, the European companies continue to invest in China.
And at the same time, we see European policymakers investigating whether and how to curb cheap imports of Chinese EVs alongside a whole range of other policy decisions that have really angered the Chinese. So how do you expect some of the political decisions that have been made over the past 12 to 24 months in the EU actually impacting the negotiations that they're now trying to have with the Chinese?
I really see that it is a political decision coming from the European side because the corporate leaders have not been involved in this. They have to see what the European political leaders are deciding about that. There is a huge list. So, of course, the electrical vehicles is one of them, but we also have the CHIP Act on the other side. We also have problems concerning the rare earth metals. So there is a huge list of items that the EU Trade Commissioner is putting on the table. But among them, obviously, the most important one is that China is opening more to the European products, and they hope that China will also revise its own list of restrictions of European imports to China in order to mitigate a little bit this huge deficit in trade.
Indeed, and the trade deficit has been much discussed coming into this round of talks. Cedomir, just to another point here, what exactly do the Chinese want and need from the Europeans in order for this to be an effective deal on their side?
So I think that they would like that the European Union is showing its independence, especially when compared to the United States. For the Chinese, there is definitely an elephant in the room, which is the United States, and they believe that at the end of the day, especially, remember concerning the CHIPS Act, when the American part is also asking all Americans working in European companies, but also all the American research which is involved in the European companies will also be concerned with this act. And I think that the Chinese side would like to tell the European Union, you are independent, why should you follow the United States on this path? Let's have a conversation between us, but I'm not so sure that it is going to happen.